There were so many that lost their businesses during that time. Welcome to our show today, and I typically remove the guests so I can do the introduction, and I didn't do that. I'm sorry. Welcome to our show. Today is a day that we're celebrating with Jane Powers and Denise M. Powers, the launch of their new book. And let me share it on the screen because I think the cover is too exquisite not to. So I'd have to do that. I need to remove us, and we'll start fresh. Revealing the missing piece. And you know what? I've ordered the book, but I haven't got it in yet. Usually I'm holding it up and bragging about it. Do you have it, your copy yet, Jane?
Nope. No, we don't have ours yet. It's a surprise for everybody.
Actually, you should go in to get it on Prime. Amazon Prime and have one for Wednesday. So we're celebrating. Jane and Denise have worked long, hard hours for this book, and I want to read their bios and introduce you to this incredible book, Revealing the Missing Piece. And Jane and Denise, I've just really enjoyed working with you. There's so many things that are going on in the background to make this something that will have a great and amazing reach. But Jane is recognized for ability to navigate and heal the most challenging circumstances. She's an award-winning international speaker, trainer, and sought after life and business strategist. Her dedication to guiding trauma survivors to emerge victorious over their past into an unstoppable future has deemed her the quintessential,
my favorite word.
Quintessential, oh my God, go-to expert. Jane is committed to you creating deep, genuine healing to live an extraordinary life that matters, just as she has through the healing of her own abuse. She knows how to reveal the missing piece, P-E-A-C-E. You must find your voice. In your voice is your power. And for Denise, she is cherished by many for her brilliance, kindness, and commitment to growth. Denise has inspired many to be their best self, whether teaching 4th and 5th graders or rubbing elbows with the likes of Tom Hanks, Ron Howard, and other accomplished directors. Denise's influence in the world is undeniable. She has affected others to increase their authenticity and to live a holy, shameless life. Her transformation through the Survive Or method has been nothing shy of amazing. With that, we welcome the beautiful ladies, Denise and Jane M. Powers. And let's talk about this book that you're bringing to the world. What started this for you, Jane?
Gosh, it started, I'm not kidding you, it started when I was about 23 years old. I put my fist through a dorm window and thought, man, something is wrong with me. And I felt like I was going crazy. I had no recollection of the abuse in my background, but I knew that I had a screwed up family. I knew that there was, trauma that had occurred. And when I started in my healing process, it was mostly around my mother's death and alcoholism. And then the world came crashing down when I had the memories about all the abuse that I had lived through. And it started out actually through anger. I'm like, you know what, people, I'm writing this book. Screw you. I'm going to tell the world how awful you are. And as I obviously worked through more of my healing, it came from I'm going to show the world how bad you are to I'm going to show the world how bad it can be and how easily, I'm not kidding you, I took the long, hard path of healing, and I didn't realize that I had developed a hack for the healing process. So it literally started, and if you don't know my age, that's like 152 years ago that I decided I will write this book. I am going to write this book and make a difference in the world of trauma. And it came to light. I was so afraid to write it. And thank you, COVID, because it isolated me. And I said, you know what, it's time. But I actually felt like there was still something missing in me. There was still a piece that was missing in me until about 5 years ago. I went, oh my gosh, here it is. And that's when the book was born.
I totally get that, because it's quite a journey, and oftentimes, having gone through a lot of abuse myself, especially as a very young child, and it went on into adulthood, and you think you work through it, but there's always triggers, there's always things, and there's so many layers of the way we react, and it can be complete and utter anger. It's feelings of low self-worth. There's so many pieces to this.
It's funny because Denise and I are like polar opposites. We could not be more opposite, and we are. And I think she's frozen right now. There, she's reacting.
No, she's smiling.
I always say I'm really happy that I grew up an angry kid. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived. I would never have survived everything I did if I wasn't the maddest kid on the planet. I would have been gobbled up by my life. That's the truth. And Denise is lovely and the very opposite of that. That's why Denise came into the book, because I would express myself from my perspective. And a lot of people, I didn't realize, I'm like, yeah, just get angry and you can move through things. And Denise is like, I'm not really an angry person. And so it makes a big difference. So it was a great perspective to bring Denise into the book, because I do things very differently, and it matches some and it doesn't match all. So I wanted to make sure to maximize that healing.
I so agree. Denise, your contribution in the book was pretty fascinating to me, because you bring a whole different perspective, just as Jane says. And I totally appreciate that, the compliment that the two of you have become to each other. And what's your perspective in bringing a book like this to the world?
Well, thank you. I think when I realized, with Jane having her memories and movie reel memories from everything so early on, and then me coming in so much later with very foggy familiarities and feelings, and we realized that she's coming from a place of fight where I came from a place of flight, and you really are either one or the other. And so I thought, why not add this perspective? Because there's going to be other people out there who, feel the same way. So the one thing that I'm really, really excited about this book is that it covers both perspectives. It's fight or flight, and very different coping mechanisms or lack thereof are triggered by each one. So I'm really excited that we're able to cover both of those bases. And it's a little challenging. There are extended members in my family who don't know about this yet. So it's a little challenging, but you know what? My siblings and I very much do. And it's like, hey, it is what it is. And I'm not going to stay quiet about it simply because some family might be shocked and not like it.
Right. And I think that for myself, I'm a mixture of the both, because there's, I think that there is many of us that are a mixture of the both flight or flight. And it's confusing for many times because of the reactionary things that can happen when you feel like you've got somebody in your face, and so it's pretty interesting. But I loved how you brought this book to the fore. And Jane, I would like to kind of really talk about the steps that, for those that, this is a very common problem, unfortunately, and it's no respecter of our race or our gender or our age or anything. It is not a respecter of anything. It can come in many different forms. And yet there has just the title itself, the PEACE instead of PIECE, is very intriguing and it's what makes this book stand apart. Not only that, but the beautiful graphics that were done for the cover. But what is this? What is the process that somebody can actually come to peace with what's happened to them?
Yes, and it's interesting because we're coining the term survive or, and the or is, how do you have an or life? You can survive, or you can live a different life completely. So truly, what I wanted to bring about is, and here was my experience. I'm telling you, and some of you may relate to this. If I did not go out of that therapist's office wringing wet, puffy eyes, I mean, like I had just been in a cage fight, I didn't feel like I got my money's worth. So man, I would go into therapy and I thought the more I told my story, the more I cried, the more I suffered, the faster I got through it. Well, obviously later on, the years came about to saying, the more you tell your story, the more you tell your damn story. And I realized that I was continuing to anchor in the fear, the resentment, the anger. I didn't have an ounce of flight in me. The only thing I think I flight from are roller coaster or carnival rides, like, or clowns. No, I actually don't. I fight clowns too. If you're a clown or in a haunted house, no one in my position should ever go in a haunted house. Becky, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I punched somebody in the haunted house. The guy was doing his job, but nonetheless.
Well, don't scare me.
Nobody scare me. I raised a handful of kids. One jumped out and scared me. I slapped him so hard on his back, and he was apologizing to me. I'm like, I'm so sorry. It's just that knee-jerk reaction. But what most do is, and I see this, I've seen this for years, over 30 to probably 35 years. There's a need to be validated, and many times people one-up each other's story in trauma. Oh, well, you know what? I was abused every night. Well, I was not only abused every night, but I was, and it's based on validation. So the process that I take individuals through, and Denise was my test client. She went through this whole process, and I don't know if the process is so amazing or Denise is amazing or both.
Or both.
Because the process, she is like a sponge. She's open to everything. And as I would walk her through the process, I would literally, before my eyes, I would see her transformation. What does that mean? That sounds so, whoa, isn't that wonderful? Unicorns are going to come out of my butt. But here's what that means. It means I could watch her react to something, talk about it through this process, and then this air of confidence, this air of, I get it, and I'm understanding it, I'm owning it. So what we're doing through this book, I like to call it the hack the healing process, shortcut the healing process. I don't care, fast track it. Essentially, what we're doing is giving our past a kind glance and then reducing it. Listen to this, reducing it to a gross inconvenience. Like,
right.
We're not our past, and we're not what happened to us.
No, and it's always, but yet for many of us, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It's the gift,
until we understand how we react until we understand all the things that are a whole different, really different viewpoint on how we react to things and catching it, you know.
Yeah, it's really, as many have said in the past, it's about falling asleep less deeply and not as long. So it's really about being awake, and when you're feeling it, when you're like, yeah, this is it, and then you feel like it's not it. Well, now you have to understand something has triggered me. Something has triggered me, and you get to say, okay, what might that be? Oh, remember I call it the original sin. Like, what's the original sin? Oh, I remember when this happened. And then you take very pointed steps. And we have gone to great lengths to fill the book with the steps for you to walk through any trigger. Now, keep in mind, I don't have any flight in me. Denise has little fight. I was never addicted. Denise graciously took on that part of the trauma series. She's been addicted. She's had depression, a number of different things. And like I said, I just keep, thank God I grew up so mad, because there's no time to be depressed or anything if you're angry like I was.
Right. You're really consumed with that, the fight. And depression for me has been a huge thing. I always have to really stay aware to stay on top of what's going on and catch it. And I remember back, Jane, to when we first met, and the journey that I've been on, but at the time it was Speak with Confidence, Sell with Authority, your whole series that way, and what you teach in the everyday life of what you do. But I remember the transformation even for me, because there's so many times you said, you need to have a little more confidence there, you pick up and, lead in a different way. And it was a very valuable part of my own journey to the healing that has occurred for me. And yet reading your book has also been truly beneficial for me, because I still, every once in a while, there's something that comes up and I'm like totally surprised with my reaction, and then have to stop and realize, okay, this is why I react this way, but I don't like it. Let's get over it. Yeah. So, and Denise, as Jane worked with you through this process, and as you two work together to fine tune the steps that a person can go through, and actually put those into words in a coherent way, what was your reaction as you were working through this with Jane?
Back at the very beginning, I was very defensive. Walls went up. I would have a reaction. I'd have a feeling, and she'd say, blah, 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 look. And I'd be like, what? No, this is just, knock this off. I'm in victim mode. Excuse me. I need to make it about me right now. And it took a little while. It took a little while until I finally started getting into this more, reading more about it, and looking back at why I did the things I did, even as a kid, and growing up, and why I reacted. Why did I drink too much? Why was I hooked on prescription meds? Why was I all these things? And it was just like, oh my gosh, I was stunned. And it truly, when I finally opened up to it and went, okay, and then had a number of conversations with my brother, who said, yeah, I hate to tell you this, but you're right. You really do need to look at this and get to a certain point and come back to me, and we'll have a further conversation. And we did. And I was just like, well, okay, all right, this is it. I get it. Now I understand it. And there are certain things that I've had to just own. It's just my programming. It is just my programming. It's my training. It's the way it's going to be. I'm letting go of any shame. I'm letting go of any guilt. I'm letting go of whatever society says I should or shouldn't like. No, done. I will own it. And at the same time, go, I don't like feeling like crap. So I'm not going to sit in this anymore. I'm going to do this. I'm going to experience a trigger. I'm going to walk through these steps in my mind. I'm going to sit myself down, take my time and go, okay, all right, got it, done, next. Because I don't want to sit feeling like crap. And I don't want to continue to look around and see who can I blame for my issues when guess what, mine. It's nobody else's fault.
I think there's a time when the story becomes old.
Yeah, and I think I want to point out, I want to make sure people understand, Denise, what were you, like 42 when you started thinking something is just not right here? So 42 years old, mine was at 23 years old. Becky, I don't know when yours was, when you
was in my 50s when I finally said this is way enough, too much, you know?
Yeah, and here it's truly, I want to emphasize, I wrote this book based on my story, which was emotional, physical, and sexual abuse and loss. But I want people to understand this book, you don't be like, oh, I wasn't sexually abused, or, oh, I wasn't beaten. You could have moved your senior year of high school, and that was traumatic for you. There are things, it's funny because I talk to people who are like, oh, no, you know, I had such a great childhood. I'm so jaded. I'm like, okay, tell me, because I'll find dysfunction. Like, you tell me your life. No one grows up unscarred. And so I want you to understand that being fired, being scapegoated in corporate America, that could be your trauma. Do not minimize. And I don't know if I've experienced this a number of times where people would diminish. Denise has done it with me. You know, when she listens to my story, she'd be like, oh, mine's not even broadcast worthy. And I just happen to, what's the saying? I don't know who says this, but the greatest souls choose the greatest path. And I'll tell you, I chose the most challenging path, I believe, to bring this book out into the world because I have such a strong fight. And I know I've had death threats from my family. I hid from my family for years, not all of them, a couple of them. And I thought, you know what? That's okay. I will fight my way through this. I was in the at the Oprah Winfrey show. I was in the studio audience. I was hiding out from my family. They panned on me for what felt like her entire episode. And I remember getting out because I recorded it on VHS. For the kids out there, that's this thing that actually has tape. But anyhow, I'm telling you, I got home and watched that and went, oh my God, I'm dead. I will be dead because they panned on me and I thought they're coming after me. And I'll tell you, once I got out of I met Oprah, we hung out a minute, and then I went home and went, you know what? Today is the day I will never back down. I will find my voice and I will never back down. And from that moment on, I have never backed down. That's beautiful. Appropriately, but.
Yeah. Well, you know, in such a process, I know when I wrote my book, which was called The Woman I Love, it was scary because I knew my family would find out about it. And I knew that they, you know, there's still family members that will not talk to me about it or will not talk to me, period. Have nothing to do with me. However, what has happened is that it's truly beautiful is that my mother and I have a better relationship now than we've ever had. And it was painful for her to read that book and understand, but we've talked through it. We've gone through a whole lot of stuff, and I look at her now and we are close. We're having fun together. We're doing a lot of nice things together, but it's been quite a process to heal. You know,
yeah. That is it's interesting because early on, all I wanted to do was kill my father. He was one of the primary perpetrators. He has since passed. I don't, maybe 7 years ago, maybe 5. Sorry. Great love.
He's been gone.
A while. But part of what I'm telling you, part of my greatest healing was after I confronted him. When I confronted him, he was significant in my healing process, because I'd have a memory, I'd have something come up, I'd call him like, you son of a nutcracker. I would go off on him for about an hour. I would tell him the consequences. I would express, and he'd say, I'm so sorry. And he would listen. And he's like, I don't know why I would do that. I don't know what, and we would have conversations throughout my healing process up until the day he died. And he was significant in listening and just having the shame. And I think some of that for me was gratifying. He felt terrible. And I'm like, you should. Like,
well,
he
was
should
quite
feel.
a man to be able to take it.
Yes, and I think that was because of the fact of the level of guilt that he experienced was so significant. And I think what I was able to do was, it almost allowed him to free himself, because I would process through the whole thing. I'm like, I hate you. I'm going to kill you, you bastard. And I would go through the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, I got that off my chest. Thank you for listening. And I appreciate it. So it was a significant process for me. But yeah, I'm the youngest of 7. I speak to 2 of the siblings. Just reconnected with one, which I'm so delighted about. I just reconnected with one after 7 years, and it's like we never missed a beat. She was drinking too much. I watched my mom die of alcoholism, and I was not going to watch my sister die of alcoholism. It would have just devastated me, even, just as much as my mother. So
that's beautiful. And it's a journey to walk when we've gone through the things that we have. One of the things that for your book, and on what to expect from somebody that's going to pick up a copy of your book, is you talk about identifying your truth and revealing the stories that run your life. And a lot of us, we don't put 2 and 2 together, or we live in the story, and we live in the story instead of standing on our story, and and rising above it and growing from that. And there's quite a few other little pieces to this whole scenario that we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the steps that you take a person through in your book, about the survive or, and I love that or thing, part of the process. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and then we'll go into a deeper conversation as we go there. Ready? So back to the conversation, and for those that are listening, we are celebrating the launch of Jane and Denise's book, Revealing the Missing Piece. That's PEACE, and it's available on Amazon right now. It will be available in the online bookstores as in a few weeks, actually. But this is a celebration because there's a long period of growth for even Jane and Denise to be able to put this book together, and walking through the process with them. There's been a lot of people involved in the process, from editing to book cover and all that went into this. And lot of credit is due to the team that you've compiled to make this come to be. And yet the process of putting a book together like this it was really well thought out. And I can imagine that COVID just gave you that opportunity to take that break to do that, because this has been a big process. From even in your book, you have a section where there's a lot of drawings and there's letters that you included in to really help drill down into the real core of what you faced, but also what so many face, because this is not something that is new. There's nothing new under the sun, and this is simply not new. It is it's a huge problem, and they're saying for one of the things with COVID is, while it's been a blessing for many of us, I'm sure there's many families that for the first time had to spend time together. And either that was very good or that was very bad, you know. And so as we go into this about the survive or process, explain how you came up with that and what all is entailed in this process, and how do we take those steps? What are those steps?
So let me tell you first, the writing of the book, I have been writing this book for the last 30 years. Honestly, I have notes everywhere that you can imagine. But I remember Denise and I'm writing away, and I'm like, yeah, Denise, throw yours in there. We're writing, and we're like so excited. And we tell Becky, we've already got 80,000 words. And she goes, oh, ideal is 50. I'm like, 50 million? Because that's what we're on our way to. She's like, it might need to be 2 books. So please understand, this is the first of a series of books. But basically, here's what I think is so important. Denise is such living proof of this. Each one of us are. Denise might be more extreme in this. We go through life. We look around and we go, oh, that behavior is getting rewarded. That behavior is not getting rewarded. And we start to navigate as we grow up. How do we blend in? How do we make sure people don't know? How do we, and Becky, you said early on very significantly, it does not, trauma doesn't care what color you are, what age you are, what size you are, what nationality, where you live. I grew up in the country club. We were the poorest people emotionally in the country club. We were so deprived, but boy, we looked good on the outside. We looked so good. I'd go back, I was in sports. I'd interview my teachers, my coaches, and they're like, oh gosh, it's such a wonderful, your mother did die, but boy, you had a wonderful family. And then I would tell them what was going on, because I was educating individuals on how to find kids that are faking, like fitting in, that are struggling. The signs, I felt like it was obvious to me, but nobody picked it up. Nobody did. For God's sake, 2 of my teachers knew that I was in a relationship. I love that I say that. I was a junior in high school. I was having an affair with my teacher, who was married, and an adult, which is, if you know that is actually being molested. But in my brain, I thought, oh no, this is a relationship. I told people about it, and they were like, oh. Nowadays, now people would be locked up. And it was like, you probably shouldn't do that. That's probably not a good idea. But I digress. So here is the steps that we're looking at is essentially, how do you wake up? Meaning, I need to realize. So step 1 is I need to realize the story I tell over and over and over again. Now, the story, I'm going to tell Denise's because it's so easy. The story for Denise is, I'm 19, I'm to fall in love, I'm to have children, I'm to look good, I'm to feel good. And it worked for a while for her. And then she started to expand, meaning the awareness, the triggers. You can't stuff into a pressure cooker. Does anybody use those anymore? No, they don't. You cannot hold down a giant beach ball underwater forever. It is a fight. It is a struggle. And the greater the size of that beach ball, it's going to pop up. Denise went through that. I went through that. I was keeping all of my life under the radar. I didn't want to be too much because I became too much. And that was, oh my gosh, I'm going to be noticed. I'm going to be seen. People are going to find out something about me. So what I want you to do is right now realize, what story do I tell about myself? My story was, my sister called me fat, dumb, and stupid my whole life. My father helped anchor that in when I decided I wanted to be an attorney. And he said, oh, that's for smart kids, and you're not smart. You're a dummy. You're a dummy. Oh. And so to this day, there are things that I do that I go, I don't know if you can do that. Or I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh God, why do I have to have this belly? Like it's the story we tell about ourselves. Right. So step one is to realize, do not deny and act, no, it's not my story. I am who I am. Please, if you're saying that, oh my gosh, that's your story. It's just the way I am. It's just who I am. Things just happen to me. That's just life. We all have our story. We are going to carry this primary story. So realize the story. I'm not smart enough. I've failed. I'm going to fail. I'm an imposter. The next thing for you to do is to release and rewire. That's like going to the gym every day to grow and develop the muscle of a new or life. You can survive. Merely surviving, that's why I keep I was like, how do we change the word? What's another word? Everybody's using thrive. I'm like, no, we've got to do something different. So what we're looking at is you can survive. I am a survivor. When we say I'm a survivor, what does that trigger? A memory that we survived something.
Right.
Every time we call up that, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. It's better than I'm a victim, but you're still claiming your past.
Right. It doesn't speak to really doing well.
No. So what we've done is we've changed it to survive or. Yeah. And the or life is essentially saying, that sucked. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it better. So it's three easy steps. They're not simple. People, they are not simple. But as you said, what we've done in the book is step by step. When it is realize, I tell my version, Denise tells her version. And it truly is about turning the light on in the dark corners of your soul. The way, good girls don't act that way. You should not, don't act a fool. Don't do these things. Whatever these things are that you grew up with, I'm telling you, this is about realizing the story you tell, releasing it, and rewiring an entirely new way of living. So it starts with reveal the missing piece, the piece of the puzzle, and then the PEACE, because there's a void somewhere. Despite your level of success, despite all of your accomplishments, I promise you, if you admit to yourself, you can sit back and go, there's that one thing. And trust me, that one thing will change your life. That one thing, that whatever that one thing is, it's the big mystery, or it's not. It's the one thing you go through the house waving your arms and I'll never have this. What is that?
Well, yeah. And actually, for many of us, I'll never have peace. The PEACE. Yeah. And it's finding a way to really embrace all of that and to use the power of our mind to actually reprogram the past. And so, Denise, in the reprogramming, I feel like we're leaving you a little bit out of the conversation. I want to bring you into the conversation. Okay. How do we reprogram our mind? How do we do that?
Oh gosh. Honestly, the very first step is to be open. I truly believe that we tend to get so wrapped up in our minds. Well, it's that person that made me feel this way, or well, what they said made me feel this way, or well, it's not that, it's just because of, I had to deal with that. No, yes, you've got to just be open. It's not just the way it is. The other shoe doesn't always have to drop. I was very much that kind of person. I was like, oh, I knew. My body felt it, and my mind knew that, for a certain time, things were grand, but be ready, because the other shoe's going to drop. And after 2 to 3 weeks, boom, something would happen. Well, of course it's going to happen, because that's what I expect. That's what we do to ourselves, and we don't even realize why. That's the thing. We don't realize why. So to me, if someone can really just be open to the possibilities, that's the very first step, because if you can't be open to the possibilities, this isn't going to work. It's just not. You've got to be open. That's really my biggest thing.
Well, if we're not open, if we have that tunnel vision where we can only see this one way, it will never change.
Right. And it literally took me 45 years to finally hit that point. It took me 45 years to finally go, wait a second. I say should all the time. Oh, I should do all kinds of things. And I need to do, or I need to not do. Guess what? Neither one work until you finally say, I want, or I don't want. As soon as you hit that point, you're good to go. But if you stick with I should and I need, or I shouldn't and I don't need, forget it. Not going to work.
Right. And it's kind of almost even that piece of the I am, how you change, instead of the kind of woe is me, but I am vibrant. I am beautiful. I am,
Absolutely.
and when you do that, it changes so much, even the vibrational frequencies, it changes.
Oh, completely. It's funny. We had dinner with my son last night, and he was talking about a friend of his who, it was his birthday yesterday. And he's like, I never have a good birthday. Things always go wrong on my birthday. And lo and behold, what happened yesterday? All kinds of chaos. My son was just like, look, you brought it on yourself. It's the attitude you're going to take. This is what's going to happen. It's just the way it works. And his friend was just like, wait, what is this concept? Now, granted, he's 18, and I'm like, okay, get him now.
Yeah, get it now before your whole life goes by and you're still there.
Yeah. It's like Wayne Dyer. I love what he says. I think it's perception or change the way you see the world, and the world you see will change. And that's essentially, in a nutshell, what we're doing through this book is taking how you perceive something, instead of look what happened to me, look what life is doing to me. It's look at what I'm encountering. We were driving home from our mountain home in Shiloh, and I was saying, I used to be really good at always looking at the silver lining, finding the lesson. And I'm telling you, you talked about COVID. COVID, in my opinion, I said this right when it occurred, because I felt in me something stir. I felt a big earthquake inside of me, and I'm like, anyone who has PTSD, COVID will emphasize it even more, because we're isolated, we're out of control, we have no choices, we're being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what not to do. If you didn't have PTSD, you do now. So welcome to the club. It truly it is a trigger that I don't think most people realize. So let me review again: realize, release, and rewire. And then the final step is what I have created is the STOP formula. And I want you, whether you get the book or not, please do, because it is truly, it will change how you do everything in your life. But the first thing I want you to understand is the STOP formula is, it's as simple as, and Denise and I do this all the time. Can you imagine living in our household? You can't go to sleep. Like, you cannot be unskillful if someone's unskillful in their communication, we're like, everyone pounces. We're like, okay, that is passive aggressive. Knock it off. I mean, even the dogs are correcting people, but nonetheless, the STOP formula: state your preference. So if you go and you have a situation, you're like, they hurt me, they called me a name, I don't like them, that makes me feel whatever, I am not enough. Or you're on a sales call. That one always triggers some wonderful stuff. You're on a sales call and they say, no, I don't think this program is that great. Oh my God, you take it on yourself. You're feeling like crap. Here's what I'd like. Yeah, exactly. Here's what I want you to do. State your preference. What I would prefer is to feel like enough. Because what most people try to do, most people go, I am enough, I am wonderful, and doggone it, people like me. That doesn't work, because inside you're like, oh my God, I'm a cotton-headed ninny-muggins. I can't do anything right. Nobody buys my stuff. I'm like, ah. And now you're trying to convince the stronger part of you. So you've got to massage the mind. You've got to help to get the mind a little curious about something new. So what I would prefer is that I attract people that find value in me. I would prefer a few yeses. That would be great. But I would also prefer to feel powerful in my conversations. So first, you state your preference. What that does, STOP, S, state your preference. T, trigger curiosity. What would it look like if I felt my power? What would it look like if I felt like I had that value? Then the O of the STOP formula is open to imagination. What would it look like? It would look like this. Now you bring in the picture, the colors, the emotion, the feel, the smell, the everything. Then
how easy would it be? Yeah.
Exactly. Then you put it into action. So state your preference, trigger curiosity, open to imagination, and then put it into action. There is nothing more powerful than curiosity to trick the mind. See, we understand the subconscious mind. 95% of your decisions are based on your past programming. That leaves 5% of the conscious mind to discern what is effective or ineffective. Think about that. So automatic programming, 95% of our life is based on our past. There is, gosh darn it, I always forget. Please understand my quotes. I can't remember. I heard Wayne Dyer says it a lot. I don't know who originally said it, but you can live 90 years or you can live 1 year 90 times, meaning it is Groundhog Day. It is Groundhog Day every year. If you get up in the morning, my ex used to get up at 4:45, gym at 5 o'clock, home at 6:05, at work 7:15, or in the car 7:15, at work 8 o'clock, at home 6 o'clock. Everything. I could predict every movement. If you are routine and predictable, you are living in Groundhog Day. I invite you to look inside and find that dirty little secret. That dirty little secret could be, I want to start a business myself, or I want to go out and build a rocket ship, whatever it is.
Or I'm going to go out on adventures. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to do something,
Exactly. I'm going to step into an or life. We can live life, but why just make it every day the same? And this is about what happens when we are survivors of a trauma. What we do is we protect the perimeter. We make sure that there's safety. Oh my gosh, the unknown, forget it. The unknown is the scariest thing. So risk taking, risk adversity is huge in the world of survivors. It is about staying safe. It is about blending in. It's not about, I'll tell you, you'll hear in there, a lot of my secrets were around my sexual expression. I wanted to behave just so. I had to watch the world to see how that was.
Not sure what that is, but
yeah, exactly. I had such great regret. I don't know, my mother died when I was very young, but she must have instilled upon me. I was Catholic, and you weren't going to do anything until you were married. So I'm telling you, until I finally went, you know what? I'm done with this safety. I was so conservative. I'd be like, I remember all my friends were like, oh God, you had sex with that. And I'm like, no. And they're like, wait a minute. You didn't have sex at all? And I'm like, no. And I sometimes regret that. I'm like, darn it. Why didn't I go wild? Well, trust me, I unleashed that after a while because we have a program. So I want to emphasize, this is not what the book is about. We do touch on this, but everything we do, unless we are conscious and fully awake, everything we do is based on the rules of engagement from our past. Meaning, if you feel shame, I used to have I tell you, I could write a book with the wonderful fantasies that I had. And we're talking sexual fantasies. And then I felt unbelievable guilt. I felt so guilty. I was in a relationship, a committed relationship. My fantasies were so strong. I felt like I was a sex addict. I did. I wasn't having sex, but I felt like that because the programming, my cellular makeup was to think in a certain way. Mm-hmm. I hate to tell you this, but that is what happens. So if you're sitting here thinking, I am bored to death in my intimate relationship or any activity, you got to look at, you're keeping the lid on the true you. And what happens is when I would think those thoughts, it would make me feel shameful. It made me have that blame. It felt like the abuse. But I went through the process of reprogramming the definition, the perception of that. And I'm going to tell you, here's our next book, third book, Sex and Success. I did not make millions until I fully embraced my dirty little secrets. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't mean that you have to go out and be a hoe. You can. There's no shame in that. Embrace your inner desires, whether it's business, whether it's having 18 kids. I don't recommend it, but it is truly, it's truly about embracing how do you want to operate. I walk into the world. I used to feel shame. I look at Denise. Denise wears nice. Oh man, she's got heels. She could put a dress on. I'm just not that gal. And I would look at the Denises of the world and feel less than because I wear leather pants, Doc Marten boots. I mean, they're sequins, so they're pretty cool, and jackets. And I would feel shame because I couldn't be that woman. That's one. It sounds like a minor thing. People, it is huge. If you are too skinny and you look at someone who is fit, or you're too fat and you look at someone that is skinny and you're thinking, I hate them. That's you. That's you. I was looking at these feminine women going, I hate me because I can't, I'm a tomboy. I just am. But I felt shame in that. And my sister didn't help by always telling me, how are we going to get these arms to look like a girl? Thank you. It's called fitness. But I can go on for days because I am passionate about Denise. When I met Denise, we're going on 5 years ago, she would never speak up. Everything was fine. She agreed to everything. She was kind. She was giving. She was. Now I've created a monster. Becky, she argues with me. She snaps at me. She isn't always a good sharer. And I think I have created a monster.
And
I
you're
want
going
to
go back the other way now.
I do say that.
Always a good sharer.
You are a good sharer. But I'm telling you, I want to create monsters. That's what I want. Because Denise, tell them just the immediate transformation when you found your voice early on. How many pills were you on? What did you like? Share that.
So when I met Jane, I had a bit too much of a habit with alcohol and drank way too much, drank every night. I was on 6 different medications, and a couple of them I knew weren't really needed, but I liked them. I was like, why not? Helps me get through my days. And my life was fine. I didn't realize anything was going on. And then it just slowly just kind of built. And then I met Jane and I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I have not been living the life I was meant to live. So I need to do something about that.
Yeah, she dropped like 45 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
45 pounds, 6 pills, found her voice. And I'm telling you, it made such a difference. And when you look back, look at the trail of your life. Look at the trail that, and here, this is the disclaimer about anything you study, even this book. No matter what, until the day you lay your head down for the last time on that pillow, you will always be working on something.
Always. You know, it will never end. No,
never. Denise says this a lot. She'll go, I have taken care of that part of my healing. I'm like,
wait a second. I already did that. Oh, you mean I got to do it again? All right, fine. Let's go.
But it's done in a different way. It's never that
quicker
same.
Too. No, it's much, much quicker when you can go, oh, I thought I was. Okay, clearly there's something else still here.
There's something deeper.
Let's do it.
It's like the peeling an onion, you know. So,
yeah. And what I see, it's like, you know, because I remember I'd be in therapy and I'd be like, God, I've talked about this enough. Well, the bottom line is it's a new story, different day, different you. As long as you are waking up, falling asleep less long, you know, less deeply and for a least amount of time. That's important. What's that Johara's window? Is that what that, is that what that is? Where it's, you start out an unconscious incompetent. So most people on the planet are unconscious incompetents. They're just living based on their past. Then they wake up a little bit and they're like, oh my gosh, you're conscious, but you're still epically incompetent. You're like, oh my God, I know I'm doing things wrong. I'm so cloddy. And then you become a conscious competent. Then all of a sudden you're conscious, you're aware, you're awake, you're managing things, you're working through things. And then you become an unconscious competent, meaning it becomes a program that is naturally running. Something comes up, it's like a serve in tennis and you hit it back. My goal is to have you, I don't care if you are the cloddiest awake person on the planet. What I want is for people to wake up and start to look at what program is running me. You're not running a program. You've got a program running you. If you don't have something in your business, it's your thinking. If you don't have the relationship of your dreams, it's your thinking. If you do not have the money, the car, the people, the self-worth, the self-esteem. It is your past running and predicting your future.
Very much.
Change how you think, change how you do life. It's as simple as that. Now, in the book, we go through 4 zillion, don't quote me, because it's not. We go through a number of activities. I have pulled in every single. See, here's what's a little aggravating. I'm going to tell the truth here. Denise got this formula by meeting me. Her healing process has been fast-tracked 5 years. Mine was about 30 freaking years. So people, I took 30 years to develop this system for you, because you don't have to spend 30 years. You don't have to spend 30 months, 30 minutes. And I promise you, you will wake up. That's
Beautiful.
it.
And I have to apologize. We are up with our hour. The hour went way fast. If you want to find a way and learn a way to really rise above the shame and the uckiness of the past, pick up this copy of this book. And we have the link going across the bottom of the screen. But this is what you can expect from Jane and Denise's book. You can expect to identify your truth and reveal the stories running your life. You can claim your voice and find your power. You can emerge victorious over shame and guilt. You can embrace the survivor in you and achieve a new reality. You can conquer forgiveness and earned peace, and embrace the power of your mind to reprogram the past. So with that, we need to conclude our show, because the next show is coming up. And thank you, ladies. We'll be back Wednesday for a Facebook and YouTube Live to really celebrate a big launch day. But this is in the early launch period. Thank you for being here, and to totally enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Becky.
All right.
Thanks very much, Becky. Bye.
Bye, everyone.